I head back to Massachusetts now, where we have been watching the testimony in the Irish Firefighter Rape Trial of the Accuser. The woman that claims that she was raped by this man, Terence Crosbie, a 38-year-old. He is on trial for the second time. This is a retrial. Because the first jury could not reach a decision, it was to not has to be unanimous for these 12 jurors, and we know going to prosecutors that Crosby was visiting Boston with fellow firefighters at the top, and he was there to be in a St. Patrick's Day parade sharing a hotel room, was a friend. The alleged victim on the stand says yes, she did have consensual sex with the friend, but then after the friend went to sleep and so did she, says she woke up to the defendant inside of her. She is now under cross-examination by the attorney representing this firefighter. Let's pick up where we left off. They've spoken about what you say happened in that hotel. It's last year on March 14th going to March 15th 7 times. Now including today, right? You text a dedicated son as you're walking out of Parker shortly after 2 a.m. on March 15th, right? Yet statements in our sky, Little John, in G. Chen, the emergency apartment in the morning of March 15th, right? Yes. Spoke with a nurse practitioner, Richard Ahern, in GH, that same morning after destruction, me all right. Yes, just for the 7 well you re in the emergency department, you spoke with Boston police officer Roxanne Acosta, right? I don't recall her name, but yes. It's been several people that don't, and then with Boston Police Detective Joseph Dunn and Sergeant in the air, right? That was recorded interview, right? I believe I was informed of important guests. You spoke with Detective McDonough again the following day, March 16th, right? And that was for another record interview at the police station, correct? Yes, right, if I am. And you emailed Detective McDonough some additional details on April 8th of 2024, right? Give a further statement to Ada Murphy, undetected McDonough, on May 27th of this year, right? I don't recall that it was the several people, and then another statement Ad Murphy and Ada Mendez, just this week on October 15th, right? Yes, but with a walker. Fair to say between all of that, you've been in contact with the DAS office throughout this case, right? He also spoke with victim witness advocates Nicole Cross and Care Hiss during the pendency of this case, right? Yes, sir. Victim witness advocates in the ad is a catch apprised of what was going on, right? The progress of the case, what's going on at the investigation, upcoming dates, things of that nature. Providing its assent, want to be needed, and they have to get ready for trial, right? We had meetings, yes. Get ready for your testimony today, right? And discuss your testimony. You watch videos? It's the videos that use and saw and talked about things that you might not have otherwise seen, remember from that night. Right, of the discus, what I might ask you to. In preparing for your testimony and meeting with Indias, did you discuss what prospective questions I might ask you for that? They had spoken to me about that process might look like yes. I'd like to take some time to go through your car statement's effect. So starting back, that energy can send you text him right after you let yourself about my client, right? And you text him, what's the effect that you woke up and guys inside of you talk about? Half a second was his friend? And get that right? Yes, that was shown. And you didn't give any further details. Is a text message that he's trying to get that called him? Try calling him once? I believe is one number that we should once, since that you did testify Murphy was questioned here, that was more than once, right? Yes, because I thought that was the day for it as we saw in that. It also has just what's right. He didn't pick up right now. Is that fair to say? He was so intoxicated at that point. It's your testimony today that March, you're not intoxicated. All right, thanks for that. I think you as I said, hey, slowly, I thought, and I believe I said the 45 in the morning of March 15, your testimony is that you were not under the effects of alcohol. I'm asking that question. No, I have been drinking, so yes, so is it your testimony to celebrate that point? I'm not asking if you will hear them, asking if you believe you're sober. I don't believe I was 100% sober. You do unbelieve you re-intoxicated. No, I was not in men and asking you to play here and talk to get it. I know I was under the influence of alcohol. We of course not showing the accuser here to protect her identity, but our teams that are there inside the courtroom. Letting us know that she's getting very emotional crying during this testimony where she is being cross-examined about whether or not she was intoxicated, whether she was sober. This is difficult for him. Good answer there would have been, you know what, so breezy up. Real fast as getting raped a hotel room. Lynn, she is, obviously. Let us head back to Massachusetts. The accuser on the stand. Cross-examination. When you were brought into the emergency department, you met with our Sky Lounge on right. And she performed an evidence collection kit that right. It's examples of trucks and success. I've been there for quite some time. As part of the giver. History of the alleged incident, right? Yes? And you have a kid and attrition of your agenda? But peanuts, right? You also said you're unsure of whether there was any penetration of your mouth, right? Well, I'm just asking what she told her the little John. Remember her filling out a form and as part of the evidence collection kit. And so my question is in response to being asked to fill out that form, the question she was asking for that for. Is it true that you said you're unsure of whether there was any penetration of your mouth? Is it after that you told their little job that you re-alleged assailant did not use a condom? Is it also true that you told her you re-unsure if there was ejaculation vaginally, orally, or externally? So you get for free? Yes, Is it true that you told their little John that you had a date and what that is so tough? Well, there was no pre-planning of it, right? You were in a dating relationship, right? You also told there that unknown males inside of you, say he, could show you of the time, right? Could it give it to me? Different much told NJ, right? That text message? Is paraphrasing their safe. And you also told their slittle that you pushed them off of that effort to get your slow start. Yes, that he follows you around pushing up. Against was attempting to, quote, keep hooking up, right? Yes. We told him to get away dressed and walked home, right? At that time, that statement to a nurse little John there has nothing about lights being on or off of the room, right? There's nothing about going to the bathroom, right? She asked you if he follows you around the shack would have, so you get certain information that you thought was important, right? But nothing their sole job describing what he looks like, right? Nothing about what he was wearing, right? Nothing about identifying marks, birthmarks, tattoos, scars, percent right. Differentiating him from the man you came to know is right. And toxicology testing is also part of the exam, right? As part of that, give some medical history, right? And I believe in the Murphy asked about the prescriptions you're taking, right? So there's little Johnny to this jury that you're taking 5 minutes for ADHD, correct? And you told us, and there's little John, that you're taking that to the right. You told the jury that that was front-sided pressure, right? Prior to seeing you told us that our skewed circle back up the U, told the jury today that you're taking with 2 different pressures. It cracked. Testified that you were to hit for something, since it and see things kind of go set a new safe. When those prescriptions were prescribed, your prescribing doctor give you any more, it's about consuming alcohol to those prescriptions. And he warned about and side effects of drug interactions that might occur. Yes. And we want that they can increase the effects of alcohol if you took that was rejected. In addition to the prescriptions we're taking for ADHD, anxiety, do previously receive any treatment for those issues? As part of that previous treatment that you and I was their fist, as part of that previous treatment. Did you ever address how ADHD or anxiety in action? After discharge from the emergency scene by nurse practitioner, heard also that it right. Yes, and you have a history to have to write. Did you review your medical record? Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We're beginning this hour in Massachusetts. It's day 2 of testimony in a case against a firefighter. From Ireland, who is being accused of rape, Terence Crosbie. He was 38 years old when he was visiting Boston with fellow firefighters to walk in the St. Patrick's Day parade. Last year, prosecutors say that while he was staying at the hotel, he raped a woman there, and the alleged victim we've been hearing from on the stand. She has decided to remain nameless in this, and she testified at Crosby's first trial that ended in a mistrial. She's testifying today that yes, she did have consensual sex with another firefighter, a friend of the defendant's, but she said he was also rooming with Crosby, something she didn't know, and when she fell asleep, she woke up to Crosby raping her. The defense says that he is not guilty, and that he, which the victim in this case, let's get you back into the courtroom now. We re-picking it up with the accuser's testimony, and she asks under cross-examination by the defense. Read that you told the nurse practitioner Hearn that member having a drink and waking up with them in sexual assault. Yes, that's what happened. And directing your attention, actually back to when you first arrived, the emergency room. The police were called. Boston police, that was it, at about 7:55 in the morning. I don't know the exact time, is not meeting people a lot of. You give a description of events from the night, right? Yes, I answered the questions that she asked. Still not sober, right, if the gully intoxication is?
As.
Part of she mentioned she consented to a blood drive, correct? Or whether your blood drive became a 0.135 blood alcohol concentration, correct? I came to learn that. Fair to say you agree that would take 7 hours for all the alcohol to leave your system if you have a 0.13. 5. What I call concentration. Would you agree that would take several hours for all the alcohol to your system if you had a 0.13? 5. Blood alcohol concentration. I don't know exactly how many hours, but I would assume that the take. But is it fair to say that if you have a 0.135, what I found stationed, you are still intoxicated? I don't know what I mean by intoxication, the blood alcohol levels. It's what it is, understand that, but that doesn't, with the consent of everything, right, to consent to recommit. Tony Io's aunt was able to consent to treatment, was aunt falling, so no, we mean by toxication. You were sober, right? You had a 0.5, all right? It's absolutely correct. So turning back to your interaction with Officer Cosetta, you told her that you assaulted and pushed off you while the other man was sleeping next to you, right? Yes, as I stated a couple times, he told Officer, 'cause of that the person who assaulted you was aunt in the room earlier, right? Yes, you told off the coast if you managed to run out of the hotel, right? You can actually buy the right, running out of the times of your speech. You walked out of the hotel, all right. It's through the lobby and out of the hotel. It's trying to get out of that situation, right? Right? You can stop and say anything to the concierge. I know that. And stop and call the police? No. So want to get to the hospital, walked home though, right? I did. And so again, having just gone through the fact that you have 0.135 what alcohol at the hospital hours later, the fair to say we're still feeling effects alcohol at that point. He left the hotel. The effects of that, I was not sober. Yes, I was able, as I said, I was able to do all those things by myself. Turning back to, after you met with Officer Kozov in the ERA Detective Joe McDonald office again, a very arrived. The emergency department sometime after 9 a.m., right? I'm sorry I don't know the exact time, but do you have a general fun reference to how long they arrived after he met with off the coast? I know they left the hospital around 11, so is it fair to say was ours not minutes? Yes, absolutely. And they conducted an audio-recorded interview with the fact and used gusty evening, beginning with arriving at the Black Crow's right. And you told them he had a few tracks right. Yes. The specifics with regard to that, though, right? I was asked if it's just giving money. Mayor, you didn't get into anything else that had happened earlier in the day, correct? You were asked about the timing of suffer to right. I don't remember at this time they didn't tell the detective that she had to eat. I do want know at this time Faith was unasked. I do want think I would share them. If you recall yesterday, you were shown some videos of the Black Crows, right? He told the jury that she ordered from there. I believe you said it was a lettuce wrap burger and fries, right? And looking at the video and the place on the table throughout the night, right? Yes, I was crazy. Said, okay, so you agree that you can eat all of what you order, right, in one sitting? When you on that one, we know nothing crazy ideas on the table. So as I was moving around and went back to was sitting down at one specific point. So even with the walking around the bar came into play the way it was unclear. But it's there, that video, right? Right, yeah. And fair to say, up to that, when you ordered at the Black, just had orders and appetizers throughout the day, right? Lots of them. It was to go along with at least 5 or 6 times before he got supply routes right. Did you have anything to drink between that night, live-in states, the provisions? Again, turn back to your interview with detective and officer. There you are. Tell me what that actually on the part of Mr. O'Brien, right? Well, the 70 went back with your consensual partner. Yes, because you couldn't remember his name at that point, right? I'm assuming it will use them, but they don't always pick since May. Will you testify about dancing and drinking and talking with them all night, which didn't remember his next, kind of theirs and we again? And then went back to his hotel in the pond as never feel that was appropriate to ask him again. What do you make program will use? It's embarrassing, but Todd engagement with him. And you didn't know his name for the entirety that night, is that right? When somebody gives me to listen to their name, and so it is embarrassing to notes that so was it only their name, yes. It is embarrassing to them again, but it too. The conversation, so that was always a good time. Fair to say you did? No recall his name until the police told you what it was? Yes, I think it starts. Drip Coffee ever told us last night? I don't recall when. 2 Coffee did it all. Cross-examination seems like it is difficult for the alleged victim on the stand. Our team is there. In the courtroom is said that she's been emotional when she's describing what happened to her. She's been crying and wiping away tears. And that the jurors are very attentive during this, but they are split in terms of note-taking, Some are taking notes, some are. The defendant's wife with her fingers laced is sitting there inside of the courtroom in the gallery. Let us get to our break. When we come back, we're going to hear more of this cross-examination where the defense attorney is going to ask her about the text message that Liv were watching together, day 2 in Boston. The Irish Firefighter Rape Trial. For Terence Crosbie, he is a firefighter from Dublin who is charged with raping a woman in Boston in a hotel. This happened in March of last year. There have been 2 trials in this case. Prosecutors say that the accuser had consensual sex with Crosby's hotel roommate, a friend of his, and that the friend fell asleep in a separate bed from the accuser. The accuser says she woke up, though, to rock Crosby raping her, and that the story that she is told on the stand, we're re-listening to her now. The challenge on cross-examination, the defense attorney for Terence Crosbie has been asking her about what or not she was still intoxicated once she woke up. Blood alcohol level was over 0.1. Let us pick up where we left off with more of her testimony. Yeah, in fact, done so. You know, if you can, give you one of Garrett Cole. He told you he was married or single, thanks to that. Because if somebody is approaching me, I think that every single, due to COVID, told you how long it's going to be in town. I was there for the parade. You recall if you had a conversation about using protection or safe sex? None of these details came up with that person in the emergency department. The first interview with police and emergency heart, we want to marry this, so still yet to the question. You can answer a question of the question, fortunately. Moving on, you told the officers that she had consensual sex with a man whose name, remember, right? That's correct. You didn't say anything about Mr. Crosby or anyone else being in the room when you rewrite? He was not. Or that he immediately left to ponder, correct? You didn't recognize Mr. Crosby as one of the people that you've met, the Black Crows, right? I've been a lot of people. You in the video yesterday, you saw that show Bright introduced into the correct. Yes, and he was one of the 3 or 4 people wearing Dublin Fire Brigade. So that correct? So they did, and stick out your mind at all that this person that you re-spending the evening with introduced you to one of his colleagues who was similarly dressed.
Oh.
I knew that their son, so you didn't remember getting it right, and that many people I talked to said that they needed. Yesterday you saw the video where you in fact hugged Mr. Crosby, correct? Yes, we have several people. Cole having many people. That you gave to Mr. Crosby on the video, even if you do on call, you saw the correct. She was leaving, and that he came over to say goodbye to the show right in yourself. Is that right? Is that right? And turning his attention, we can say that the Black Crows walk, or that you can correct. And so if your testimony that you do remember him being in the room, that he was sharing with me right at the Omni Parker house when you arrived. I didn't know there's nobody else in the room. And that's what she told all 3 officers up to that point during those meetings with the officers at MGH, right, that there was no one in the right. He told the detectives yourself after a suspect. And that you walk up to someone inside of the right. Did you know where you were when you woke up? Now you tell the detective the person Salty was making reference to his friend, the U.S., right? And you told the detective he was pushing around the room trying to kiss, right? And it's not a great big room, right? It's an approach, the first round. Oh. It's just a single room, correct? There's not the living room that ashes, honestly, right? And so to testimony that the commotion of pushing it around the room, trying to kiss you, didn't wake up. Mr. O'Brien, right? You sort again this recorded interview with the detective that done it at Officer Barrett. You can say about the lights being on the road at that time. The right, that was that. Tell him anything about being in the other, is that right? That said the interview, eh? And so many thing about yourself being nude. Specifically say at this time. Well, what I shared with them, that several that as, okay, there is nothing that you testified. I was just that you told them at. That time about being under the blankets of the covers, right? And as I said, I answered every question. And it is first recorded interview. He told the detective yet to transfer the Black Crows, correct? And if he testified, that is to say, to our south, there's a shot. I believe also testified. Yesterday that you had 2 hard seltzers at the table. You have a server, but you also going to the bar, correct? Yes, that's where the shot. A recorded interview doesn't fax and jet to tracks. Here doesn't quite match that, right? Is it fair to say you've lost track of the trick she had that day? Is it fair to say Mr. Biden, Mr. Member of the Treasury, had that? Did you in a previous proceeding testified when asked if you've lost track of how many times she had? Said by 1 or 2. I was getting rough estimates. Oh, it is sure that that's had testified treats correct. Let us see if I can clarify. I asked you if you lost track of how many tricks you have this, you had, and you said no. While they work on that, let us bring in criminal defense attorney. Colleen Kelly calling. Thanks so much for being with us. The news that we re-getting from inside this courtroom is that while the alleged victim is testifying at this point, our faces flushed. She est. Wiping away tears with a tissue, she's in pretty sympathetic witness. I would think, but what do you think about how the defense attorney is handling this witness, his tone, and the way he is asking the questions? While he's doing his job, and he's doing his job in that heat, always is going to have to question the witness's memory and their credibility. So to that effect, he has challenging statements that she is making in court and how they differ from things that she said before, things that she had left out. But she is coming across as very credible, and I also think that he might be stepping over a lot. I mean, the props I wouldn't cross. He is almost trying to shame her. He is pointing out that she went home with this other man, or to the hotel, and that she was having sex with him and didn't even know his name. And I think, frankly, that S crossing a line that might make the jury not really appreciate it, especially if we have any female jurors on there, and particularly younger females. Jurors, we do have several female jurors in this panel. Of the notes that we were getting is that there are some who are taking note, some that are not one. It seemed to be a bit according to our producer that's in there from their vantage. Point annoyed with the way the defense is doing, the questioning tightening. They're taking notes and continuing to listen to all of this testimony, and I'm glad you mentioned victim shaming or victim blaming. There is a line when it comes to these cases. What other things? Do you think the defense has to be careful of getting in the bounds if he's already spent a lot of time talking about it? Toxication? Or blood alcohol level at the time that she made it to the hospital? I can see the jury getting annoyed with his question. I myself of getting a bit, he's asking a lot about her intoxication level. Anything she has. Really giving good answers. She clearly is not going to admit that she was so intoxicated that she can. And I remember, and I think her answers are appropriate in that, What do you mean by sober and was unperfectly sober? What do you mean by intoxicated? Was aware of my surroundings. So every time he's asking these questions and he is asking similar questions and she's giving an appropriate answer, I think he really is pushing it further into the area of annoying the jury. I think everyone on the jury, or most people on a jury, understand how alcohol affects our behavior, how it affects our judgment, how it affects our memory, and they have an idea of how many drinks she did have. So I think he's just believed breaking point. Now, this cross-examination is going to continue calling standby. What's coming next is the defense attorney is going to ask this. Witness whether she lost track of how many drinks she had, and plus that Johnson is going to join us live with a preview of our next live trial here for Defendant Destin Duran, and it starts on Monday. We'll get you prepared for that. Stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live. We will get you back inside of the courtroom for that case against Terence Crosbie in just a moment. But we do want to get you an update on our newest live trial set to begin next this week, called the Amber Alert Murder Trial. The defendant here is Dustin Durant. He's accused in the 2024 shooting death of his girlfriend Caitlin. And then he is accused of also running off with their 2 children, and that's what triggered the Amber Alert. Let us bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who is here in studio with us to tell us about this case. We have Amber Alerts. Matt, we always hope that someone is found when they come up on our phone, that they're information. That helps lead to children being recovered. Tell us about this case. Yeah, absolutely making headlines, and it was very chilling for people. New Hampshire and also just the Boston area. This is a tragic case about a mother being executed in an apartment building, followed by a dramatic manhunt for her accused killer. Prosecutors say 38-year-old Dustin and shot and killed his girlfriend, Caitlin Nast, singer, at their apartment in New Hampshire on February 29, 2024. The next morning, police issued this and the alert for Durant and his 2 young daughters that he shared with the victim. They were just 1 and 4 at the time. He was later arrested after everyday citizens paid attention, spotted his car, and called police. Local station WHIM-UR interviewed them. Listen to this. Turn around. But what are called 911? I told the 911 operator, I said, I think he sees us. And it was a little scary at that time, We did it as mother, their S, as a parent, my grandmother and staff. Amber for, to help, and we did it for the children. His defense is going to claim that he shot Caitlin in self-defense to protect those kids, because he says that he thought that she was about to kidnap them, so it's a bizarre case, and that's what we can expect in those opening statements. I wonder what we're going to hear from the defense to try to back up this claim. What more do we know about Caitlin? Right, so she was Caitlin, she was that when she was from Minneapolis, close to her family and just 31 years old at the time. Her family posting this online. Take a look, Caitlin was small but mighty, quiet but fierce, and was his brain as they come. She had so many nicknames, including Ty and Goose. To name couple or loved ones would like her to be remembered by her spirit. The spirit of Chai is a whimsical wonder, along for the ride up for the adventure, and she was a multi-talented powerhouse. The spirit of Chai and joy lives on in her two beautiful girls again on Monday of this trial, kicks off dust under, and it is expected to start. With those opening statements, he faces up to life behind bars if convicted. He's facing multiple charges: first-degree murder, second-degree murder, endangerment of children, fleeing from police. So this is going to be one to watch. Matt Johnson. Thanks so much for monitoring that for us. We'll have that for our viewers on Monday. For now, let us head back to Massachusetts. We're rewatching together that Irish firefighter rape trial for Terence Crosbie. He's accused in the rape of a woman who is in a hotel room with his friend. She says she did not consent to waking up and finding him on top of her. She is under cross-examination right now by the defense. We're not showing her face or using her name. She is being asked about the drink she had at the bar when she met her friend. Lost track of how many troops he had? You answered no. I asked you, is it fair to us that if you testify differently, the fires? Is that yes? Yes. And that record interview, you also told the detective that to your left, the Black Crows approxed 11 p.m., right approximately us, and watching the video yesterday. So that was actually after 11:30, right? So the video actually shows that it's after 11:30 degree. Around 11. You described Mr. O'Brien for the detectives, but again, didn't know his name, right? Told the detective he didn't exchange contact and force social media. Right, we did not. And I didn't expect to lead to 18 and more. And this recorded interview went on to tell that during your encounter with Mr. Ryan, who work on the correct, again, that's a record and they're right. I believe that, yes, they do that. And your testimony today is different, right, today? Tell the jury that he did not work. And in a previous proceeding, you testified that you are, in short, correct. Yes. He told the detective that the person who allegedly assaulted you did not work on the right. During that first recorded interview at the hospital, you also described that person as also being Irish, with a similar height, but not all right. Said the man who allegedly assaulted you was completely naked, right, during that first quarter? And today? But he was. And then that first interview concluded right. So the next day was March 16th of 2024, right? And you went to a Boston police one for further interview, right? What I did? And this time you met with a detective that out and detected by right. Again, denied seeing anyone in the room, when you and the man who would later come to know as Mr. Bryant arrived back at the hotel that night. Pretty sure about that, right? Denied it multiple times at this point, right? The detective again, this is another recorded interview, right? Believe so? That it had to be asked more. Then once clarifying that you knew no one was in the bathroom, right? Yes, he said no one else was there, correct? You were shown the video from the Black Crows raced by the detectives. You showed video of the Black Rose by the detective, says that right? That, yeah, I want to. Yes, one of our interviews. Yes, and so you have to find yourself Mr. overriding the video, correct? It did, yes. And at that time, you don't recognize anyone else from the video, correct? I recognized. Groups of people that not only... Was this event? No one stood out to me. He told the work. Sure, you can ID the person that you allege assault to the right. Today, he told this jury that you're looking at his face right. I had seen his face, but I was not trying to look at his face. I was just trying to get out of the tournament. So you've now had to this point to interviews with the police, right? The morning of the 15th and 16th? Yes. In neither of those interviews that you say thing about the bat of liking, all right? I don't believe I was asked about what effect, and you still haven't told the officers to this point in the other? Those two record interviews? It's about you being in the other better way from where Mr. O'Brien was sleeping, right? Again, I don't believe that is asked of those details. And in those two recorded interviews, yes, one of the two you said, the person who allegedly assaulted you is close to right? About my yes, as I said, yes. Best tight. That's the first time that you mentioned you're not the best that high right yesterday, yes. Okay, and you testified. In prior proceedings, and never mentioned that before, right? Because they want to clarify that. You didn't tell detectives that. The person assaulted, she was 4 to 5 inches taller than you know, right? No, but I pulled his shoulder. Well, you said about the same height as you, correct? Proclamations, yes. Okay. He said he was completely naked, but had mentioned any scars, tattoos, or birthmarks, right? Was absolutely not looking for any of those states, but he was filling new contract. It wasn't examined his body and, oh yes, he was making, but it wasn't looking for it to the states. I just wanted to get out of the room. You were asked in those interviews and didn't talk about where we were earlier in the day or night before the Black Crows, right? I don't believe I was similarly you were asked to. Talk about how much he had to try to get those prior locations either right. If I didn't talk about those, yeah, I would have said yes. And the Texans had how much she had to drink until over the course of the day, right? If that wasn't the question, you didn't tell them in Texas about what you had in prior to the day? That right? I effect. Showed you the video black. They show up at 11:34 and not 11 is your test. Yes, it says the attorney for today's show you shaking Mr. Crosby's hand. To show you how the Mr. Cross before he left. We moved away from the table. Yes, you remember that prior to see the video, correct? And the safety and how the right, remember shaking hands and hugging a lot of people? That I said this person is, you know, that to me at that time. Is it fair to say you're pretty intoxicated while you're at the back rows? The defense there getting the alleged victim to confirm that she met this firefighter who was on trial. Prior to the incident that she shook his hand and hugged him, and it was the video evidence that through that she didn't initially share that with police, but she now is saying on the stand that she didn't remember him. He didn't stand out to will a second jury be able to reach a decision. We re-watching together day 2 in the Irish Firefighter Rape Trial in Boston, Massachusetts. The defendant, Terence Crosbie, he is standing trial. The second time on charges that he raped a woman in a Boston hotel. First jury ended in a hung jury case, the firefighter from Dublin, Ireland, and he was in Boston to march in the St. Patrick's Day parade when the alleged attack took place. The accuser has taken the stand and shared disturbing allegations that she was asleep when she woke up with them on top of her. And I am not stopping teams inside of her and then pushed her up against a wall. She says that he told her that he was better than her friend, his friend, rather the friend that she did have, consensual sex with. She's honest, and now under cross-examination, and she's being grilled about how much she knew out this defendant prior to this incident. Let's go back in. Showed you the video black. They show up at 11:34 and not 11 is your test. So props to 11, yes. 11:34 today show you shaking Mr. Crosby's hat. To the show you hugging Mr. Cross before he left. With the way from the table, yes. But yeah, remember that prior to see the video, correct? It's the shaking in the right. We're shaking hands and hugging a lot of people. Said this person is, you know, that's me. Is it fair to say you're pretty intoxicated? Was that the back rows? We have an 11:34, as the video shows. And we did see some evidence of your arrival today at the RV. That's about 20 minutes from the time he left to the time you got to the room. And you don't ever see Mr. Crosby again 20 minutes later in his room at the RV park asked to write. Yes. You said that the Texans at least 2 times telling us? Is that right? The fair to say you don't remember a lot of things that I know. The next time you talk to law enforcement about that, night is an email to Detective McDonough. On April 8th of that, you rewrite. I don't know the exact date. Could you send an email to Detect Encounter in April last year? Is that the first time you told them that? When you went to pick up your clothes and what the bathroom? Let's just all try to push Islam. You asked me to? Was this the question of time, so I try to ration? So that was new information from Mr. Ford Detective looked at that point, right? I mean, that's the intention of the emails, okay? But the others include anything about the bathroom, like being on the 41 and that, right, or sending it. I don't remember. I'm going to come back that for now. Do you call it? He said the thing about being a different better under the blankets at that point. She did testify about those details. Is Jerry fair to say? Those details came out? And some point after that, he prepared to get tested, right? And is it fair to say you had detected McDonald's email and invitation to give him any other information that might be helpful? You can email again with the other details. The right note. And up before the grand April 23rd of last year, that. And that was about 5 weeks after the alleged assault, right? And prior to that, you met with 88 Murphy to prepare right. Yes, she explained to me what to expect. Did you meet with the tax effect on against it? All right, that actually is the point where they took a break inside of the courtrooms. Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Colleen Kelly, who is with us. Colleen, she is having to detail this now on the defensive, because she is under cross-examination. You know, we do want victims to feel like they are not believed when they are telling the truth, but the system puts them really through the ringer, especially when you're rehearing all the time she said to testify. Yes, and she clearly is having a difficult time, but obviously from the defendant's point of view, she's not telling the truth now. I'm not hearing. The defense attorneys say that she's lying, that she's making this up, that she's falsifying this report on purpose. What he seems to be implying through his questions are that she doesn't remember things correctly. She doesn't remember because she had been drinking, and I do think it's odd, and it does point to her memory that she did in fact meet the defendant. At the bar, Haten shook his hand, and then later, when he was the person that she alleges raped, Shakua, and identify who it was, and I do uneven mean just by name, Shakua, and say, my gosh. This was the guy that I met earlier at the bar, that it was the friend of the man that I went homeless. So that does indicate that perhaps her memory is not perfect. Was there no DNA, C.A. Lee? Why do you want we have conclusive DNA and only inconclusive unknown male DNA? And that is an interesting question too, and you could see the defense attorney asking questions about that. Was this person wearing a condom or not? You said yes. You said you didn't know was the other person wearing it, and I don't think that. We have a really clear answer on what her position is, but the reason why that is important, and they will have an expert presumably testify about how much DNA is left behind. When someone is wearing a condom or not wearing it, is going to be a big part of this. Welcome back to Court TV live on Judge Ashley Wilkind, of course, honored to be with you this Friday. We are in Boston, Massachusetts this hour, where a jury is hearing day 2 of testimony in the Irish Firefighter Rape Trial of Terence Crosbie. The defendant was visiting Boston to walk in St. Patrick's Day parade, and now he finds himself on trial for allegedly raping a woman at a nearby hotel. Crosby's first trial ended in a mistrial after the jury could not reach a unanimous verdict back in June. If he is convicted this time around, he faces up to 20 years in prison. Let's get you back inside the courtroom. We're repicking it up with testimony from the alleged victim, now she-s, on cross-examination by the defense. Before we took the morning, I was asking about an email you sent to Detective McDonald. That approach with a copy of that email. Look at that if you recognize it. I asked you a number of questions about that email and leave you testified that you could remember. Is that refresh your recollection? Have you that? Yes, it does. That doesn't contain any information whether the bathroom lights are on or off, right? Not that it doesn't contain any information about which that you are and whether you're under the blankets, we noticed. So those details came later, right? So you're prepared to give just one of the grand jury. He appeared before the grand jury on April 23, 2024, right? That was about 5 weeks after the alleged assault, right? And prior to that, you met Murphy to prepare, correct? To expect. And I believe I asked you already testified that you didn't meet with Detective Matt McDonough as well, right? Yes, he said. Some of the meetings, okay. And so in those meetings, you gave additional details that you had previously shared during your recorded interviews with the police, or that you know, right? Right when the other questions are asked to me. So when the grand jury testified about going to Big Night Live and states steeper State Street provisions, right? Murphy asked you if you're eating and drinking right. You did not ask what or how much of the grand jury, right? Again, in the grand jury when you went on to testify about going back to on the Parker, you said nothing about anyone else being in the room when you rewrite track. In what you did, you testify that there was no one else than what the grand jury as well, right? Right, or at least you can remember something that right now. Because their SUY also asked about whether Mr. O'Brien had more to conduct the grand jury, right? Whereas in the previous record interviews, you told the police he had now the grand jury. You're telling them that you couldn't call, right? I do recall exactly what I said in the grand today. You reassure he was not right, the contract. And the grand jury was the first time he testified or told anyone Mr. O'Brien, the starfish across the bed, right? I believe so. That was one of that. The grand jury was the first time you said that you had gone to sleep in the other, that, right? Similarly, that was a question that was asked me to answer that. And you had previously mentioned that in your interviews with the police, right? No, I was asked that. There's the questions in those interviews that the police said not, so that the accident did. In the grand jury was also the first time that you testified, spoke about the fact that you re-naked in the other, but right. Similarly, those first times that I needed to share that information. And you had mentioned that your prior record interviews are the mail to please, correct?
Yes.
Similarly, about getting on the covers first mentioned in the grand jury, not in prior interviews of the police, right? In the grand jury testified about being assaulted, and the alleged assault are talking about Mr. O'Brien being a loser, right? Not exactly what you told Mr. Jacobson previously, right? Not exactly the same. Then you testified in the grand jury that after able to get up to start collecting a clothes around the room, right? Before or after your? Let us just Salter was supposedly chasing around. Well, he has testified that after able to get up their salt or was chasing around the room. You've also testified that you collect your clothes from around the room. I'm just asking, did you try to collect clothes before he chased around the room? Once I got to call me absolutely around the room, so he was following you, want to try to collect Rickles, correct? Mr. I never woke up during this period, tracked now the snow, and very happily. He testified in the grand jury that the bathroom light was on so you can see right. That you had mentioned anything in those prior interviews about the best way to correct. Similarly, as I mentioned, that was the first time that the question's asked. Be still in the grand jury and say thing about identifying Mark Step 2 Star's birthmarks on your alleged assaulter, right? I said earlier I wasn't looking for any marks on him. I'm just asking him to testify to any of that in the grand jury. Didn't notice any marks or scars that. But in the grand jury to testify that he was supposedly make it right, yes. Interview in the statement with the ADA is a Detective McDonough on May 27th of this year, right? I believe that statement he told the DA Murphy, the technique done it, turned on the bathroom light afternoon. Mr. Bryant finished sex, right? Is it true that yesterday testified that that light was already on? And because of that, you testified that you can clearly see the person who allegedly assaulted you, right? And even though you can see him again, you didn't testify to anything about identifying marks, scars, tattoos, or birthmarks, right? As I mentioned, I was looking for that, turning a light on. He wasn't in the room prior to the current slate. The light was on so the light remained on when he was naked and not on top of the correct, and you can see him correct. He never testified or give statements about him having birthmarks, scars, piercings, tattoos, right? Like I said, I really was not looking for any of those things. I want to get out of there after the break. And you have one further interview with the ad is on October this past week, right? That was the first time that you guys discussed specifics of your interactions with Mr. O'Brien in that hotel room last March, right? In terms of what sexual activity engaged in consensual sex. The front of your previous statements to the police and the DAs, did you mention whether Mr. O'Brien the single or married, right? 2 statements to the police that were reported. You've had numerous interviews and statements with A.D. Murphy, undetected McDonough, testified in the grand jury in. None of those prior proceedings did you testify or give a statement as to whether or not Mr. O'Brien the single or married, right? And similarly, if you knew whether you give you his shooting right, did you ever get the midiest? No. You never gave them any statement as to how intoxicated you believe Mr. O'Brien to be correct. And you never previously told them whether you discuss a sense of control, right? You told 88 Murphy and Ada Mendez. This most recent October 15th statement that upon returning the hotel room, you and Mr. O'Brien, again just right, that he touched and kissed her, right? Yes. You told them that she performed oral sex on him, right? You told them, excuse you then, have vaginal intercourse, right? Yes. Do you recall whether to remove your clothing, or did you? You can call. If you had sex with Mr. O'Brien more than once, do you recall if you can gauge for attempted to engage in any other sex acts during their encounter? You cannot? Did you talk afterwards? I went to the bathroom. I came back to sleep. So immediately after national intercourse, he went to the bathroom, and when he came back to sleep, at any point, either before or after, having sex, Mr. Brown, to discuss the fact that he had a roommate, it's your testimony that he fell asleep before you, correct? Yes, the only other person that can come from all this is Mr. Right. Have a look back at all your various statements, us suggesting this jury that the hotel, but right, that you were sleeping the other bed which was fully made when you arrived, right, and you're under the covers, right? Yes? You're suggesting that Mr. Crosby entered the room without you noticing. I was asleep. Yes. You're just suggesting that Mr. O'Brien didn't see or hear mention the room. And you're suggesting that Mr. Crosby didn't turn out the lights? I woke up in the life of someone who's he's suggesting that he noticed you, and in his, that right? That although you under the blankets, you're make it right. and that he took the sheets back off to explosions have weakened, right? Oh, I was asleep. So yes, that's what happened, because when I woke up to that side of me. You're suggesting that the position you have manner such that you could insert himself into, right? I stuck to my back, so yes. This is all happening without Mr. O'Brien awakening, right? He was snoring the entire time. That you re-suggesting that he did actually insert himself and did get having intercourse? With you without you waking up in the church? Right, absolutely. Suggesting that once you push them off, you know that he's slightly taller than you. It's not someone that you recognize, someone that you shook hands with or hugged, that the Black Crows, even though you can clearly see him in the late right. Again, it was irrelevant to the Black Crows. I met a lot of people. He did not faze me at that time. And he denied that he was in the hotel room, and you're right? Yes, I do. That he was naked and falling around the room, right? This is actually wrapping up. So again, suggesting this jury that you didn't notice any bodily marks, scars, tattoos, right? That was not looking at this body and care they need to get out there. But you could see him, right? A safety pin through this. Didn't right away can survive. No, I want to get out of there. Can run out of the room. Literally run out of I got the best they could in the given situation. This state that hotel staff right now, and no one wanted to get home and get to the hospital. The tree walks home still feeling under the influence of alcohol. Fair to say, of gaps in your memory from that night, right? He didn't remember the name of the man that you've gone back to his hotel with sustain. Yeah, the floor of the hotel, you're right. You remember the number of the hotel room, right? I wasn't paying attention to the current number. So it was fair to say you weren't paying attention to a lot of the details that might matter, right?